Andana Braja Jana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pavikarabhachaya Shratar Shratar Shishiman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Hare Krishna Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Right. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 8. All right, so the word for word. Asit Yat Udarat Padmam Loka Samstana Lakshanam Yavan Ayam Vai Purushaha Ayata Avayavai Pratak Tavan Asau Iti Proktaha Samsta Avayavavan Iva. Okay. Asidyad Udarat Padmam Loka Samstana Lakshanam Yavan Ayam Vai Purusha Iyatavya Iyatavaya Vai Pratak Tavan asvaviti prokta samstava vyavavaniva asid yad udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavan ayam vai purusha ayata vai pratak tavan asvaviti prokta samstavaya vavaniva asidyad udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavan ayam vai purusha iyatava vyavai pratak tavan aswaditi proktaha samstava vyavavaniva asidyat udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavanayam vai purusha iyatavai vai pratak tavanasvad iti prokta samstavaya vavaniva asidyat udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavanayam vai purusha iyatavaya vai pratak tavanasvad iti prokta samstavaya vavaniva asidyat udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavanayam vai purusha itatavaya pratak tavanasvad iti prokta samstavaya vaniva asidyat udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavanayam vai purusha vai pratak tavanasvad iti proktaha samstavaya vaniva. Manjis? Asidyat udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavanayam vai purusha iyatavya vai pratak tavan asvad iti prokta samstaya vayavaniva asidyat udarat padmam loka samstana lakshanam yavan ayam vai purusha Okay, word to word. Asit, as it grew. Yat udarat, from whose abdomen. Padmam, lotus flower. Loka, world. Samstana, situation. Lakshanam, possessed of. Yavan, as it were. Ayam, this. Vai, certainly. Purushaha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Iyata, measurement. Avavyavahi, embodiments. Patak, different. Tavan, so. Asau, that. Iti proktaha, it is so said. Samsta, situation. Avavyavavan, embodiment. Iva, like. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose abdomen the lotus stem sprouted, is possessed of a gigantic body according to his own caliber and measurement, then what is the specific difference between the body of the Lord and those of the common living entities? One should note how Maharaj Parikshit intelligently put questions before his spiritual master for understanding of the transcendental body of the Lord. It has been described in many places before this that the Lord assumed a gigantic body like that of Karno Dakashayi Vishnu, from whose hair pores innumerable universes have generated. The body of Garbha Dakashayi Vishnu is described as sprouting the lotus stem within which all the planets of the universe remain. And at the top of the lotus stem, at the top of the stem is the lotus flower on which Lord Brahma is born. In the creation of the material world, the Supreme Lord undoubtedly assumes a gigantic body, and living entities also get bodies, big or small, according to necessity. For example, an elephant gets a gigantic body according to its needs, and so an ant gets its body according to its needs. Similarly, if this personality of Godhead assumes a gigantic body to accommodate the universes or the planets of a particular universe, there is no difference in the principle of assuming or accepting a particular type of body in terms of necessity. A living being and the Lord cannot be distinguished simply by the difference in the magnitude of the body. So the answer depends on the specific significance of the body of the Lord as distinguished from the body of the common living being. Om Jnanatamanandasya Gananjanjana Salakaya Chakshorunmanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapanantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shukda Parakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnamam Shah Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahaganan Ragadam Tam Nitam Tam Shajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Rara Krishna Padan Sagalanaritam Shri Vishakamitam Shah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimante Bhakti Vikas Swami Niti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimante Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunivadi Paskatari Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, before I start the verse, I had looked up a couple things about Murari Gupta, and so we could just read through those in the beginning. There's two things, there's many things, but I picked up two things from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, the first thing, so you can bring up Adi Leela, chapter 10, verse 49. So there's a paragraph that describes that. And then after that, we'll go to Madhya Leela. So, Shri Murari Gupta Saka Preme Dera Bandara Prabhura Hridaya Drave Shuni Dainya Yanra. Murari Gupta, the 21st branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a storehouse of love of Godhead. His great humility and meekness melted the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Sri Murari Gupta wrote a book called Sri Chaitanya Charita. He belonged to a Vaidya physician family in Sri Hatta, the paternal home of Lord Chaitanya, and later became a resident of Navadvip. He was among the elders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya exhibited his Varaha form in the house of Murari Gupta as described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanda, chapter 3. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his Mahaprakash form, he appeared before Murari Gupta as Lord Ramachandra. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu were sitting together in the house of Srivas Thakur, Murari Gupta first offered his respects to Lord Chaitanya and then to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu, however, was older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore Lord Chaitanya remarked that Murari Gupta had violated social etiquette, where he should have first shown respect to Nityananda Prabhu and then to him. And this way, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Murari Gupta was informed about the position of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And the next day he offered obeisances first to Lord Nityananda and then to Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave chewed pan or betel nut to Murari Gupta. Once Shivananda Sain offered food to Lord Chaitanya that had been cooked with excessive ghee. And the next day, the Lord became sick and went to Murari Gupta for treatment. Lord Chaitanya accepted some water from the water pot of Murari Gupta, and thus he was cured. The natural remedy for indigestion is to drink a little water, and since Murari Gupta was a physician, he gave the Lord some drinking water and cured him. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the house of Srivas Thakur in his Chaturbhuja Murti, Murari Gupta became his carrier and the form of Garuda. And in these pastimes of ecstasy, the Lord then got up on his back. It was the desire of Murari Gupta to leave his body before the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the Lord forbade him to do so. This is described in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanda, chapter 20. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one day appeared in ecstasy as the Vrahamurti, Murari Gupta offered his prayers. He was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra, and his staunch devotion is vividly described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 15, verses 134 through 157. So we're going to go there. So if you can go to that spot, and then we'll read that. All right. Are you there?
Yes. You said 134. It said 137.
Yeah, 137, sorry. So, what's the translation? Sorry, I'm at the index, so. Okay, I'm at the same spot. Okay. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Murari Gupta and began to speak about his firm faith in devotional service. This was heard by all the devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Previously I induced Murari Gupta again and again to be allured by Lord Krishna. I said to him, 'My dear Gupta, Lord Sri Krishna, Vrajendra Kumar, is the supreme sweetness. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the origin of all incarnations, and the source of everything. He is pure transcendental love itself, and he is the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. He is like a mine of gems. He is expert at everything, very intelligent and sober, and he is the summit of all transcendental humors. His character is very sweet, and his pastimes are melodious. He is expert in intelligence, and thus he enjoys all his pastimes and mellows.' I then requested Murari Gupta, worship Krishna and take shelter of him. but for his service, nothing appeals to the mind. In this way, he heard from me again and again. By my influence, his mind was a little converted. Murari Gupta then replied, I am your servant and your order carrier. I have no independent existence. After this, Murari Gupta went home and went and spent the whole night thinking of how he would have to give up the association of Raghunath, Lord Ramachandra. Thus he was overwhelmed. Murari Gupta then began to pray at the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra. He prayed that death would come that night because it was not possible for him to give up the service of the lotus feet of Raghunath. Thus Murari Gupta cried the entire night. There was no rest for his mind. Therefore he could not sleep but stayed awake the entire night. In the morning, Murari Gupta came to see me. Catching hold of my feet and crying, he submitted an appeal. Murari Gupta said, I have sold my head unto the lotus feet of Raghunath. I cannot withdraw my head, for that would give me too much pain. It is not possible for me to give up the service of Raghunath's lotus feet. At the same time, if I do not do so, I shall break your order. What can I do? In this way, Murari Gupta appealed to me, saying, You are all merciful, so kindly grant me this mercy. Let me die before you, so that all my doubts will be finished. Hearing this, I became very happy. I then raised Murari Gupta and embraced him. I said to him, All glories to you, Murari Gupta. Your method of worship is very firmly fixed, so much so that even upon my request, your mind did not turn. The servitor must have love and affection for the lotus feet of the Lord exactly like this. Even if the Lord wants separation, a devotee cannot abandon the shelter of his lotus feet. Just to test your firm faith in the Lord, I requested you again and again to change your worship to Lord Ramachandra to Krishna. In this way, I congratulated Murari Gupta, saying, Indeed, you are the incarnation of Hanuman. Consequently, you are the eternal servant of Lord Ramachandra. Why should you give up the worship of Lord Ramachandra and his lotus feet? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, I accept this Murari Gupta as my life and soul. When I hear of his humility, it perturbs my very life. So much can be said about that. But Murari Gupta, as was mentioned in the previous verse, was an intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya. And all the main things were highlighted in that purport. But often when I think of him, I think of this particular pastime also, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was joking with him and to give up his worship of Lord Ramachandra and just focus on Krishna. And by his staunch faith and worship in Lord Ramachandra, he pleased Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes it's like a misconception that you can only please Lord Chaitanya if you worship Krishna in the mood of a gopi. But we can actually see that realistically when we look at Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, it's not the case. That there were so many different devotees of so many different rasas who engaged in Lord Chaitanya's Leela and served him and pleased him. And also too, we can understand from this that a devotee who's on the perfect platform, he's completely satisfied in his service. He doesn't feel that like anything's lacking, which is important to know, because sometimes in the material sphere, we could think that if I was just like this in the spiritual world, or just like that, or whatever it is, and then only then I would be happy. But the devotee is satisfied in whatever situation he's in, and the devotee may know higher rasas and things like that, but he's not lamenting, thinking, I wish I was there, I wish I was that, or whatever. Or the devotee gets to Vaikuntha and he thinks, well, this is it, this is all that there is. This is what I worked so hard for, to attain perfection, just to be in Vaikuntha. So a devotee doesn't feel like that. He's happy wherever he is, because he understands that that Krishna has some service and he wants to be served in that way. And so he's satisfied with whatever the master wants. So Lord Chaitanya was joking with Murari Gupta in this sense, and so he appealed to him in that way. And then he admitted that he's very happy with him in that sense. So there's so many different associates of Lord Chaitanya, and we can learn so much from them, and they're all extremely glorious and their own separate and individual ways. And there's so much more that could be spoken about that, but I'll just stop there for now. And anyway, so today's the day to remember him. So I'll jump now into the purport of this text, which is interesting because this past time with Mari Gupta and all those things that we read, in one sense, they deal with some of the highest stages of Krishna consciousness, pure unalloyed devotional service. And this verse opens up, or Maharaj Parikshit is asking a very relevant question, because without properly understanding this question, we can't discuss all those other things about what Mari Gupta and Lord Chaitanya was talking about, because we won't be able to what's the word? But if there's a basic misunderstanding, then going into such high level topics are in one sense pointless, because one won't be able to understand Krishna properly in truth. So this verse in particular, Maharaj Parikshit is asking questions, and so he's asking many questions. This chapter is called Questions by King Parikshit. So we kind of know what's going on in the chapter. Maharaj Parikshit is asking some questions, and so Maharaj Parikshit, we can note that from the Srimad Bhagavatam, he was asking just, any old question, just like Mitravan Prabhu was making points yesterday. I forgot exactly what example he gave, but Maharaj Parikshit wasn't asking, Sukadeva Goswami, what's and it was probably called something different back then, but what's the capital of North America? Or, he wasn't asking him about the, so we have the banyan tree, what's the molecular makeup of that? There's different things like that. Or what elements compose of water? And what's the recipe, good recipe for panakam? Maharaj Parikshit wasn't asking those kind of questions. What Maharaj Parikshit was, he was cursed to die in 7 days. So when you actually understand and realize that you don't have much time left, then the priorities in life switch. Just like people, generally when people are young, they have so many ambitions and things like that. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to travel all around the world. I want to go to this university, that university. But when you're 80 years old and you don't have many years left, then it's you lose the aspiration to go to this university and that university and to get this car and that car or whatever. I know, I talk to my grandmother every now and then, but she always tells me, that she's older and she must be like 70 or something. And so she tells me, one thing I've learned, growing old is so many things didn't matter. I used to care about so many different things. She's not some spiritual person. She's religious, and she's favorable to, devotees and things like that. But, she's not chanting 16 rounds and things. But she always tells me that, when I was young and things like that, so many things were important. I used to care what people thought and all these different things. But now I'm realizing they don't really matter so much. So it's natural for old age to bring about some level of renunciation. But the thing is that, renunciation in and of itself is not enough. So one has to have proper knowledge and understand, to become renounced from the material world and then to become attached to the spiritual world, to Krishna. So Maharaj Parikshit, he's, of course he's a pure devotee, but he's properly, I can't remember the Sanskrit, but he's renounced and he also has that knowledge. What is that? The Lord Chaitanya came to teach. I can't remember the... Vairagya, yes, thank you. So he's situated in proper renunciation and in knowledge. And so he's the proper candidate to ask questions to Sukadeva Goswami. There's no confusion in his mind, and there may be seemingly some doubts, but that's to facilitate the speaking of Srimad Bhagavatam. But he's not doubtful in the sense of, is Krishna really the goal of life? It's not that we get into the seventh canto and then he's just is Krishna really real? Or something like that. That's that's not existing there. I mean, he was hearing about Krishna when he was, as a child and things like that. And I don't know if it was in this that we were reading. Oh no, it was in Krishna book I was reading. But it's described that Maharaj Parikshit was interested to hear about Arjuna and the kidnapping of Subhadra, because it was a close relative and things like that, and it was nice because Krishna was interacting with his relatives, and it was inspiring to hear. It was fired up. He liked to hear it. So Maharaj Parikshit, so he's intelligent and he's asking intelligent questions. We see sometimes we go on a book distribution or whatever, and people, they don't ask intelligent questions. They ask unintelligent questions. Usually the common question that people ask is like, what's that stuff on your face? And so we explain, but it's the same thing over and over again. Then it's like, oh, that, or like, why do you chant Hare Krishna? I mean, it's an intelligent question. Why do you chant? But as far as, like who God is and, what is our, like what is a soul, and going deep into that, people, they don't really ask questions so deep into that, nor are they really inspired in that sense. So Maharaj Parikshit, he's asking questions, and so his particular question in this sloka is he's trying to understand the nature of the Supreme Lord's body, specifically of Gaurabodhakashayi Vishnu's body, because he mentions here the lotus sprouting. So that's Gaurabodhakashayi Vishnu, or the lotus sprouts. And so he's mentioning how big that body is, but then he's specifically asking, well, like what's the difference between Vishnu's body and the common living entity's body? Because there has to be a difference, right? In that way, he's allowing Sukadeva Goswami to answer in response to this, which Sukadeva Goswami will explain. I mean, he explains so many times, but he will explain in the next chapter and chapters to come. So the thing is that there's a difference, Maharaj Parikshit is bringing out, there's a difference between God and the living jiva, the jiva. There's a difference between Bhagavan and the jivas, the creator and the created. And so there's many verses which substantiate that. Prabhupada would often quote that, Nitya Nityanam, Chaitana Chaitananam, Eko Bhavanam Yovedadati Kaman. That the Supreme Lord is great, or he's all cognizant, and the jivas are minute, and and Bhagavan is supplying the necessities to all living entities. So this is one simple difference between God and the jiva. And there's so many things, but these points, though, that there's a difference between Bhagavan and the jiva, is crucial in making proper spiritual advancement, because an improper understanding will lead to so many different problems. So you can bring up this verse. This is a common verse. I'm just going to speak on it in a completely different light. But this 558, this Pumsastriya Matuni Bhava Metam Toror Hridaya Gratim Ahu Ato Griha Kshetra Sutapta Vitera Dinasya Moham Ahamameti. So particularly this first line. So the attraction between male and female is a basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, okay, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to, body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one's life illusions and one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. So just scroll up. Scroll up. Sorry. So that on the basis of this misconception. So misconception in life leads to problems. Generally, sometimes people have misconceptions and they make some great discovery or something. But on the whole, if we have a misconception or we have some misunderstanding, generally leads to problems. Just like if we think, if we make, we're building this temple out, and so if we make mismeasurements and we calculate that the square foot of this room is 1 mile by 10 miles, and then we buy a whole bunch of wood for that measurement, we're going to waste a lot of money. Where this room is, I don't know, how many feet is this? Some 40 feet or something? Yeah, like that. So there's a difference between 40 feet and then 1,000 feet. So, and then we waste a whole bunch of money, we waste a whole bunch of time and energy and all those different things. So the same thing, with an improper understanding of God, it leads to problems. Particularly in this verse, it's mentioning that the improper understanding of, just the body as a self, and just being attracted in the material existence. So anyways, there's so many things that could be said about this verse, but if we take the body as a self, then we think, so many different things. We take the body as a self, and then we, that the body's me, and then I'm meant to enjoy, and then we get entangled in the material world. But what to speak of if we have misconceptions about who the Supreme Creator is, who Bhagavan is? Then so many problems happen as a result of that. And there's so many common misconceptions about who God is. That, that God is formless, or God is some old man sitting in the white cloud, or sitting in clouds and naked, and, God is, God is you, God is me. People have so many different ideas of what God is. And then stemming from that too, with their misconceptions of who God is, then they have misconceptions about, why God created the world. And then we hear so many different times that, God created everything, and then He created the world for me to enjoy. That God, I don't know. I'm not so well versed in this theology, but God was, there, and then He created everything, and then He put His sons and daughters into the world, and then He said, enjoy, like that, enjoy the fruits of my hard earned work. You're the chosen people. And so the idea is, the conception is that God is just like some, some blank check that, that He wrote. He has a blank check, and then whatever your desires are, you just pray to Him and you'll get it, whatever it is. And the more pious you are, and the more that blessings of God you have, the better that you enjoy in the material world. The more money you get, the more money that your spouse has, or the better your spouse looks, or the best car that you get. You have God's favor. You got, I don't know the fanciest cars out there. Usually these sports cars, like Lamborghinis and things like that. If you have God's favor, then you have a Lamborghini. If you have God's favor, then you got a beautiful wife. You got God's favor, your career is taking off. You're getting the Lord's mercy. And then they preach like that at different churches. Like that. But then it's, you're not getting God's mercy if you're suffering. Just like I mentioned one time, some guy's house burned down, and then he became an atheist because he was thinking, I worship God, and then my house burned down. Then there can't be any God. And usually with philosophy like this about God, and the idea is that God is the supreme order supplier, and then my relationship with Him is just to get things, is a business transaction. You're no better than going to Walmart. Going to Walmart. But the thing is that it's better than Walmart, because with Walmart you have to pay something. With God you just pray. You just pray. Really hard. I want this. I want this. I want this. You're petitioning the Lord. Give me, give me, give me. And then He gives, and then it's like, God is very nice. God is good. And then it's ridiculous, because it's, we understand in Vedic culture that people, the Brahmanas, the priestly class who understood Bhagavan, and they spoke on the Vedas, they live renounced lives. It's not that, you see a Brahmin, you shouldn't see a Brahmin. A Brahmin comes and he's got all these different gold rings on, and he's got, the fanciest, clothes and the fanciest this and that. It's hard to get too fancy with a dhoti and a kurta, but you can try. But it's, and then, but nowadays, it's, people, they speak, not everybody's like that, but they have the best suits, custom tailored suits and like that, and the best shoes and everything, and all the gold rings. And then you go to the churches, and they're gymongous, and they have all these top of the line technology. And these, because it's so big and there's so many people there, they got these huge TVs there, and then they just give the sermon, just speaking, whatever, I don't remember. See, I used to go to church so many times with my friends and things, but for years I went, but I don't really remember much of anything that was spoken. And even when I was going and actually listening to try to hear some message, I still don't remember anything that was really spoken. Nothing really stood out in particular. But the basic idea is that, like we said, that God is supplying opulence. And then, and then what does the spiritual world look like? Or the heaven. Heaven is, so many different people have given their interpretations of that. One pope said, or somebody said, some high religious figure, that that when he gets to heaven, he'll worship God for so many years, 100 years or so, and then for the rest of eternity, he's going to enjoy like anything. And so like that. And then there's two. I remember there was a song growing up I would hear on the radio. It was describing like, the kingdom of God is there, and there's like there's a table there in the heavens, and there's tons of food to eat. And then there's also I think God has a backyard, and there's lots of space to play football. This is a famous song actually in the Christian sphere. You could look it up. And then I think he said some other stuff too. But then the chorus of it was like, anyways, it doesn't matter what the chorus was. But this is the house of God. That you can do all these different things. So and then there's also too that like the one particular sect of Christianity that when you die and go to heaven, then your grandmother's there. And you want her to be young, but she wants to be young, but you want her to be old. But then how old is grandma? And then I don't know, maybe the cats are there, the dogs are there, things. But then it's just centered on this material sphere. But when we actually look at those religions and we study them, and we see some of their teachers, we see what they actually taught to renounce the enjoyments of this material world. There's some things there that Jesus taught like that. And he, from my understanding, he seemed to practically live like that also. But there's so many different, and then other religions that when you die and you go to heaven, that there's so many different virgins there. It's a really low level of spiritual life that if you're worshiping God and you're living a life trying to live piously, but then your sole purpose and the burning desire in your heart is to go to heaven to enjoy with virgins. That's not spiritual at all. It's even, I don't even think people in the material world, they think like that so much that they whatever, they have sex and then they work hard, and why do you work hard to have sex? And then and like that, and it's just kind of like some cycle. They work hard to eat, they eat to work hard, and then they have sex in between that. But it's I don't even know how to explain it, but it's really mundane. It's almost animalistic to think in such a way that I want to go and enjoy in this sense. And of course, not all people, I don't think like that, but that some particular people are attracted to that. And so it's weak theology. And then another aspect of that too is that, God created everything, but, God's all powerful, God's all knowing, God's, he's amazing. But when he created the world, there was, somehow or other down the line, he created somebody who was equal to him. And then he's just causing problems in his creation. And that's a common aspect in most religions in this Kali Yuga age. Is that God has some competitor, some fallen angel or something like that, and and he's just causing problems in the material world. Another aspect, so God knows everything, he knows, but he doesn't know, like I heard one devotee say one time, God knows everything, he's all knowing, but he doesn't know what I'm going to do. Like if I'm going to do this or do that, he doesn't know, because I don't really understand why that, because it's a big misconception actually. And anyways, we can get back to that. But also too this idea of, God created the world, but then he created it with problems. So people, they have all these different philosophies and all these different understandings, but they have a misconception. And due to this misconception, generally when there's a misconception, they have that saying, it's ignorance is bliss. So, you can have tons of misconceptions and think, whatever, you're enjoying spiritual life like anything. But generally when there's a misconception and somebody's sincere, they feel some lacking or some problem, something's like missing, And then that people I've heard most devotees say that they read the Bible and then, they felt like there was something missing there. They didn't really answer their questions and things like that. So people are searching. They have like an understanding. Okay, God is great, but how great is He? Or okay, they analyze some of these different points that we discussed, and they feel that something is wrong. So proper knowledge has to be established, and that requires somebody who is actually living the life, who's living the Srimad Bhagavatam, who's living the Bhagavad Gita, who's living a pure spiritual life. That's required. That's why Brahmanas, they were the head of society, because they were living it, they were preaching it, and they were living it. Because it's important to actually live the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam of the Bhagavad Gita, and live the Brahminical life of this Vedic culture. Because we can speak things and we can say, just like I was listening to Srila Prabhupada this morning, and so they were talking, he was saying, I'm paraphrasing, but the man was talking where Prabhupada said, you're given all these different rules and regulations, the Prabhupada was saying, yes, chant 16 rounds. He was saying because the Westerners, they can't chant more. And then, 4 regulative principles, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, things like that. And then the man was saying, well, I don't even know if anybody can follow that. He was saying, well, they may follow it for some time, but then they may give it up, that's very difficult to follow. And this is a man in India. And Prabhupada was saying, yeah, that is there. But then the man was saying, but he's like, but realistically speaking, because they follow all those principles, they'll probably stick with it because they're actually serious. And Prabhupada was saying, yes, he was like, actually, if you follow these regulative principles, it'll keep you safe from Maya. Because I was listening to it and I was thinking, yeah, it is difficult to follow all that stuff, actually. What to do? I'm from the West. Was it Lord Jetland famously told one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples, and he told him all the regs, he said, impossible. So that's my lineage. Impossible. But, by the mercy of the devotee, something has been going on for some time. Hopefully it can continue. So Srila Prabhupada was saying, yeah, it is difficult. But the thing is that by following those, actually, it makes it easier because it keeps us safe. If we don't chant 16 rounds, and we don't follow the regulative principles, or follow one of them, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, or 3.5 or something, or whatever, follow them on Monday through Friday, and on a Saturday, whatever, Sunday, or whatever, one day, whatever, one day, just one day in a year, I just, whatever, I forget all that stuff and just let go, and then that, anyways, without getting into that, but then you could preach, that, I just don't follow the regulative principles just one day of the year, and then that helps my mind, it helps me get on track and stay committed. But I don't know, that the acharyas didn't teach us that. So, but the thing is that, by following the regulative principles, they actually keep us safe, and they make it easier for us to follow them, actually. Because if we we give up one of them, you think that, I can do this and that, but I can't do this, I can't follow this intoxication, so I'm just going to go for it. And then that leaves room for Maya to get in 100%. And then the next thing, you whatever, breaking everything else. So Prabhupada was making that point, that these principles, that they protect us. So the living the life of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the given by our acharyas, it helps us to understand better the process of Krishna consciousness, and it keeps us safe. And so the acharyas, they explain these things, and they understand these things, and they speak it for our benefit. So Parikshit Maharaj, he's specifically making the point here. So what's the difference between the Lord's body and our body? And so there's a couple verses that speak on that. And he mentions different things. Prabhupada makes the point in the purport. He gives the example of an elephant and an ant. So nobody will argue that there's a difference between an elephant and an ant as far as the size of the body goes. An ant only needs, ant just eats a little bit here and there. Usually there's like a couple thousand of them, so they eat a lot. But the ant, comparison to an ant to an elephant, elephant eats a lot. And so the thing is, there's a size difference, ant, elephant, okay. And then so living beings, the size difference between us and Gopadakshayi Vishnu. But it's a lot more than a difference from amount of size, actually, the body speaking. Of course, on the spiritual platform, the makeup is the same, but we're just minute parts and parcels. But on the material atmosphere, there's a big difference between our material body and the spiritual body of Vishnu. So there's a couple verses. I'll just pull them up here real quick. So probably the most famous one, what is that? We don't have to pull that one up, but Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. So that's mentioned in the beginning of the Brahma Samhita, that the Supreme Lord has a body which is, spiritual, Sat Chit Ananda. Also in the Brahma Samhita, it's mentioned. I really like this verse, but Advaitam Achutam Ananim Anandarupam Ajyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesha Dorlama Dorlama Abhaktao. So the translation of that is, I worship the primeval Lord, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtained by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul. Who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning, and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. So there's a lot of things mentioned there. So he has a body which is subject to decay. I mean, everybody's material body is subject to decay. I mean, there's nobody, even though they may try their science and things like that to freeze the body. I have a speculation that when you unfreeze the body, there's probably some bruises and things like that on there. It probably looks a little nasty. Because generally when you freeze things, it ruins the quality of it. It gets some freezer burn or something like that. Yeah, because there's this frostbite. I got frostbite when I was a kid, and then it was just like my hands were all purple and things. And I think I have some type of scars there from that. And that was, what to speak of what they're freezing the bodies. So... and then also, without a beginning, whose form is endless. I mean, who's got a form that is endless? Nobody has a form that's endless in the material world. Everybody's form has, you can measure it. That's the thing. I think that was mentioned in the Sanskrit, measurement. Iyata. So the Supreme Lord's body can't be measured, And even too, it's amazing to think also that I was thinking the other day, because we were playing around. But you were trying to chase me, and I was remember that yesterday? I was thinking of that pastime with, I think it was Kaliyavana. He was trying to catch Vishnu, but Vishnu was just walking and he was running. But he wasn't able to catch him. So it seemed like, that Krishna's moving at, 2 miles an hour, and then this other guy's running at, full speed, full throttle, but he can't catch up to Krishna. And that's because the Krishna is not subjected to the measurements of the material world. That we walk from here to there, that's 40 feet. Krishna doesn't have to walk 40 feet to get to point A to point B. He can, he can stroll casually and, cover thousands of miles instantly or whatever he wants to do. He's completely independent. He's not bound by material laws. We're in the material world, so we have to abide by the laws. Material law means, you want to walk, you want to get to point A to point B, you got to put in that endeavor. If it's a mile, you got to walk a mile, or you got to figure it out. There ain't just, whatever, I'm just going to do over there. I mean, yogis, they may have that Mr. Power, but they had to work for that. They had to put in that tapasya. So there's some endeavor in everything in the material world. There's some tapasya. So there's a difference between our body and Krishna's body. One big difference is, obviously speaking, from Garbhodakacharya Vishnu, that we don't have a lotus flowers coming from our belly button and, living in Lord Brahma popping out of that. It's actually amazing too, because it's who's doing that in the material world? Nobody's doing the amazing things that Krishna's doing. Nobody. When we go to sleep, at least when I go to sleep, it's drool coming all out of my mouth. I wake up in the morning, and then there's a puddle of drool on my pillow. But when Mahavishnu is sleeping, universes are coming out of the pores of his skin, and then in all those different universes, he expands. And then it's some universes have Brahmans with thousands of heads or millions of heads, and then there's Shivas in different universes and Rudras and different eyes and all these amazing things. So the universe is multivarigated. And so it's how is he doing all that? And it's inconceivable. I don't know how he's doing it. But the thing is that, he's doing it and we're not doing it. So in one sense also we can see it's funny how Maharaj Parikshit is asking this question. Because, he's asking it for the benefit, but in one sense it's obvious that there's a difference between, the Krishna and the commonly entities. There's a big difference. He was existing before the creation and things like that. He's situated in the heart. It's the previous verse was talking about, meditating on the Virat Rupa, this universal form. So it's we don't have no Virat Rupa. Krishna just, it's like when we like think about it logically, Krishna's amazing. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As people, there's just, whatever, just like Pundraka, he was, thinking that he was Vasudev. And he got some benediction or whatever. He looked a little bit like Vasudev. But, people are so crazy that they actually literally think that they're God. Like, it's funny to us, that we're blessed by Srila Prabhupada's books and by the association of devotees, and so that misconception has been cut. But the thing is that when a living entity is progressing, in the material sphere and completely bound up, and like we were talking about, in this previous verse of the Pumsastriya Matuni, you don't have to pull it up, but there's the misconception. So living entity, so he tries to break free from that misconception of, man and woman. And then he's, there's so many things that, to get to point A to point B and try to get out of the material world. But the last snare of Maya is that the living entity actually thinks that he's God, which is like crazy, And, maybe some people probably think they're God more than others, but there's literally people out there that they're convinced 100% that they're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that they're whatever, they're Vishnu, they're Krishna, they're God, they're Allah, like that. And they're like hardcore, like that's like, they believe that 100%. And then they may like, be a little soft about it, and like, say that, Krishna's God, Krishna's supreme, this and that. And then another talk, that, Krishna's amazing, he did his Leela. And then they'll slow in a little bit in there that like, I am Krishna, you are Krishna. And you're like, wait, what did he say? Anyways, we shouldn't be in a situation where like, wait, what did he say? Like that. But, their intelligence is they may be very intelligent, but it's what is avasuddha Buddha. The buddhi is impure. And so, what to do with people like that? We have to preach to them Krishna consciousness. And so Maharaj Parikshit, which actually stuck out to me in the previous verse, it was like this. I thought this was an amazing sentence. So I'll just read that. So this is from the previous verse yesterday. Maharaj Parikshit, being a typical devotee, is not only satisfied by confirming the importance of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from the representative Brahmaji by disciplic succession, but he is still more anxious to establish the philosophical basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Maharaj Parikshit, he wants to establish the philosophical basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. He wants everybody to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories of Krishna and like that. But he wants the philosophical basis that, okay, this is what Srimad Bhagavatam is about. This is the essence. This is how we understand it. This is there's no doubts about it. Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost literature. It's giving the topmost fruit of love of Godhead, the philosophical basis of that. And if we think about that and meditate upon that a little bit, we understand that there's actually so much work to do in the Krishna consciousness movement, distributing these books and then also establishing practically of what does the Srimad Bhagavatam look like practically on a day-to-day basis. It's not just some storybook that, read in the morning or something like that, and then we go about our days, but it's, we hear the Srimad Bhagavatam in the morning, and then we carry those instructions throughout our days, and then we live the Srimad Bhagavatam, just like we were talking about earlier. So it means a lot. So it's, Srila Prabhupada said, and then Bhakti Vikas Maharaj also quotes this often, but Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, I think in 1976, he said that we should make Srimad Bhagavatam our life. And so we should make Srimad Bhagavatam our life. And we should inquire on what that means. How does that look like? And we can see that too in the personality of great devotees, what it means to make Srimad Bhagavatam our life. And then it doesn't become just some, whatever weekend thing like we see with most religions, that, Sunday is a day to be like super religious. But it means, like 24 hours days, Monday through Friday. Even in our dreams, we're dreaming Srimad Bhagavatam, or at least we're trying to be Krishna conscious. So it means a lot. So we make the Srimad Bhagavatam our life. We distribute Srimad Bhagavatam in the books by Srila Prabhupada. We speak that also in so many different aspects. We are trying to become Krishnaish. Srila Prabhupada would often make the point that you have some iron rod and then you put it in the fire, it becomes like fire. So similarly, if we put ourselves in the process of Krishna consciousness, we become spiritualized. So we want to become spiritualized. So that's what it means to make Srimad Bhagavatam our life. That that by speaking, by whatever service that we do, it's like a laser just cuts through Maya. We want to get to the stage when we cook some prasadam and someone takes a bite and then they immediately fall over and then they go back to the spiritual world. Just like when we see Lord Chaitanya, I think he was feeding these fishes something in the river, and then they all attained form. Ramajunacharya, that's there, okay. And then also that dog, that was what Lord Chaitanya. But they go back to the spiritual world immediately. Then we want to be so spiritualized, just cutting through like that. Or like we see what so many devotees talk about, that when Srila Prabhupada would cook something or make something, that it was like the best thing they ever had in their life. Prabhupada cooked like some rice, some dal, some simple sabji. We cook some rice, some dal, some simple sabji, and it's just like, where's the masala? It's like this dog's food. But Srila Prabhupada, he cooked that in devotees. They're still talking about that some 50 years later, that it was so good, so nectar. Even too, the devotee, like sometimes they would mix all the remnants up together, and the devotees would eat that, and we say it was like the best thing ever. Or Srila Prabhupada, made some sand dash or some rasgula or something. It was heavenly. Never had anything like that. So this is what happens when we become Krishna conscious, is that whatever activity we do just cuts through Maya, and then it bestows also pure devotional service. And we can see too that there's that recording of Srila Prabhupada and Vishnu John Maharaj. That Vishnu John Maharaj is leading the kirtan. It's in New Vrindavan, and then it's like ecstatic. Vishnu John Maharaj is singing, and Prabhupada cuts in. And then he starts chanting Hare Krishna. Everybody's screaming in ecstasy, and they're yelling, and you can hear it, you can feel it. It's like, whoa, And so, what to say? But Srila Prabhupada was so Krishna conscious. It was whatever he did was just like, it was like a new revelation. It just blew your mind. Devotees talk about too that when Srila Prabhupada would send a letter, they'd be waiting for it anxiously, because Prabhupada could say something in the letter, say something in a class, and nowadays it's different, with the technological age. Prabhupada could say something in a class, and then you would, hear about it some weeks later, or whatever, get some mail or something, and it could literally change your whole life, or how you went about Krishna consciousness, or like your understanding of something, or what was important. Just like Srila Prabhupada, eventually as time went on, began to press the importance of book distribution. And then there's that famous talk, distribute books, distribute books, distribute books. Devotees were, praying, and they were at that moment, I'm going to dedicate my life to Srila Prabhupada's book distribution. And Prabhupada gave instructions to so many devotees on different things. But the thing is that, when one becomes completely Krishna conscious, it just cuts through all the knots in the heart, everything, and completely transforms those that individual comes in contact with. And so that's the perfection of it. And the thing is that Srila Prabhupada came to teach that, and he came to show that Srila Prabhupada was the living Bhagavatam. And so we can learn from that, and we can also progress in that way also. Not that what Srila Prabhupada, of course, is on a high plateau of pure devotional service, but he wants us to come up there with him also, and he wants us to become pure devotees. He came to preach and show us how we can become like him, how we can be fully Krishna conscious, and that may be different from person to person, just like we see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada. They were all fully Krishna conscious, 100%. But they exhibited that in different ways, and they, had their personalities, and like that, and how they interacted with disciples and things. They were individuals, so we all have a role to play in the Krishna conscious movement, and so we have to become Krishna conscious. So we have to know these basic points, and so Parikshit Maharaj is explaining and expressing this, and so we can speak that also, and learn from that and study that. And we also see too that Srila Prabhupada, all these different complicated points about the position of Krishna and the material world and things like that, so many different, and then the body and the soul, Prabhupada explained so many different complicated points very simply actually, and then we're able to explain them very simply and people understand. Just like one common thing I thought before Krishna consciousness was that we have to become desireless. We have to get rid of desire. But then Prabhupada makes a simple point that, that desire, to be desireless is a desire. And then just immediately it just like, you defeat it 100%. It's like, what can you say back to that? It's like, well, dang, that's true. And so many things Prabhupada did like that. Prabhupada was expert in just like, just in one sentence defeating like a whole like cultivation of a philosophy for like millenniums. Just in one sentence, it's like, oh, what? And just like, person's speechless. Like, what do you say to that? And it's like, like, oh, wow, he's right, And so many different things like that. And all these things too, that, and of course Prabhupada was following the footsteps of other acharyas, but, there's nirguna, what it means that Bhagavan has no qualities, no form. But then Prabhupada said, no, it means he has no material qualities. And then it's like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Of course, those people argue back and forth. But, we're really fortunate, Srila Prabhupada explained this really simply for us to understand. And if we repeat it, even though we may not understand it 100%, then that vegan will come, and then we'll understand it. And even if we don't understand it 100%, just by repeating the words, people will understand, and they'll be like, "Oh wow, I never thought." Or they'll be convinced in that way. So there's so much work to do. Everybody has their place and their service to do. But the one thing that we can all relate to is that we have to make Srimad Bhagavatam our life. And we have to become pure devotees. The sooner the better. This life, we should aim for that. Because if we aim for that, then, if something happens, then it's like, whatever. But if we're like, I don't know, then it's like, good luck. It's difficult. We have to have that resolute, that determination. And we can get that determination by following the process of Krishna consciousness and having faith and going, through it day in and day out. So I'll stop there. If there's any questions or comments about anything.
Can you pull up the verse, 9th chapter, 34th verse? Yeah, this is Vandana Homat Bhakta Mantyajimam 34. Actually, in the purport, if you go further down, just slowly, just up. Yeah, Krishna is not an ordinary person, like that. So my point is here that Prabhupada added it after it was published in 1971. Prabhupada said to add this particular paragraph from Krishna is not an ordinary person, and he added this Chaitanya Charitamrita verse. So there is a letter where Prabhupada says that I hope everything, to Satsarup Maharaj, he's saying that I want to add this particular paragraph to tell to defeat the, Prabhupada says at the end that this evidence is here to show that there is no distinction between Krishna's body and himself, since such commentators as Radhakrishnan make such distinction. So I wanted to make the point that this was added afterwards to say that Krishna's body is not different from his mind and his...
Yeah. That's good, thank you. Anything else on Prabhu's side? All right. Mataji's anything? Okay.
Could you just, so last snare of Maya, does that mean that's like the most illusion one could be, like thinking that they're God? Last snare, what does that mean?
From my understanding, Srila Prabhupada means that the living entity is trying to get out of the material world and get liberated. So the last snare means like it's the last trick. Like Maya has so many tricks up her sleeve, whatever, become like a rich king, become, this, that, become so many different things. So the last snare, it's her last trick upon the conditioned soul. That will actually, you've been, suffering so long in the material world. You want to get free from that. You want to get liberated. So, what liberation looks like, the topmost spiritual goal is that, well, actually you're God. So it's the last trick, because then you stay in the material world actually. And you don't get out of the material world. You don't get liberated. So you remain with the material energy. It's just like, like a prison. They have so many systems of defense, where they have the jail cell, and then prisoners break out of the jail cell occasionally. So then, when they break out of the jail cell, then they have they have different things, but they may have like an alarm system outside that sounds. And then, if that doesn't, they get past that, then they have like a tall fence or something. And then, whatever. They have like different like degrees of security. So the same thing with Maya. This is like her last thing that like, okay, like, you know, you are actually God. And if this conditioned soul is sincere, he gets a proper association of devotees, and he breaks through that last, you know, obstacle. Anything else?
When you were reading about when you were reading about Mahari Gupta, it said give up association of Raghunath, Lord Ramachandra. Is Raghunath another name for Lord Ramachandra?
Yes. Okay. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.